what we should do when it comes to anticipating software change, or what we should do anticipating change, and then what other technique did we look at? Let's see if people are reading here. Hello? Can you hear me? There's a question. The question is, what else can we do besides anticipating change, potential change that can take place?
Excuse me,
yes.
Sir. The question is clear. The response is negative.
What do you mean the response is negative?
Like there's no one who's brave enough to answer that question. So
more clearly, you're brave enough to answer that question, right? Do you remember what I was talking about when I did that screencast, when I was talking about prototyping? And do you remember what we looked at? We said there are a whole bunch of things we can do. Well, there are two main things we can do for us to cope with change. We can tolerate the change, and then we can anticipate change. Yeah, and all these things, right, are tied to this idea or this concept that's going to come up over and over again, the so-called is it triple constraint, where you are, because the key focus of project management, at least anyway, is centered around three key things. So it's quality, time, and cost, right? So the reason why you want to cope with change is you want to make sure that you are taking into account all those different constraints, right? Cost, time, and quality, right? The quality of the product you're producing. So these are things that you want to pay particular attention to if I were you, right? So anyway, something else we looked at was this whole notion of process improvement, right? So how we go about improving this overall software development process, especially for projects that span a considerable amount of time, so months or years in certain instances, right? I don't know if the project you're going to be working on is a classic example of one that might require a lot of process improvement, but perhaps not anyway. But definitely your so-called capstone project, right? So we looked at the three key things that you need to take into account, right? You do analysis, you do some sort of measurements, right? And then you perform some sort of change so that you modify the process, right? It's a moving target, so you want to make sure that you regularly improve the overall process. And this is why, by the way, as we're looking at people management, we look at lecture series number 3, which is project management. We'll look at the role that your typical project manager will perform, right? To course correct. If things are not working out, you want to improve the process somehow, right? Do you need to hire additional manpower? Yeah, especially when you anticipate that you might go over budget, that perhaps you might not meet the deadline. What do you do? Right? Do you extend the project, which is usually a bad idea, but turns out that that's what typically happens anyway. Do you hire more people? That means additional cost, right? Additional cost means you're going to go over budget. But anyway, process improvement. And we looked at all those different things. Like when it comes to measurement, we highlighted the fact that metrics are important. And specifically, we said that the key metric that we'll be interested in are empirical. We're interested in quantitative measures, right? So things that you can quantify. Effectively, what you're looking at is an empirical evaluation of the overall process improvement, right? So you want to collect metrics or measurables, variables that you can easily measure. Time, lines of code, for instance, right? But anyway, hopefully that was clear. But now is the time for question and I guess question and yeah. So now is the Q&A session. If you have concerns about lecture series number 2, comments, you can actually lump in anything to do with homework if you want to, if you need clarification on homework, which is due tomorrow, by the way, 23:59. Are there no questions? This place is going to be one of those.
Mr. Layton.
Yes.
I have a concern concerning our project,
Okay.
the event activity and reminder. That project requires us to integrate some third libraries. So I don't know how we can go about it because it's just expensive on our part.
You mean third-party libraries? What third-party libraries are you supposed to integrate with your
Like
project?
the JS moment.
I have no idea what
A,
I have no idea what JS Moment is all about. I don't know what it does. But I hope you're not falling into the trap of thinking of lifting something that has already been done online and just integrate it with your project. The other thing to think about here, right? I don't know if you finished your question here. Maybe I'll let you finish your question anyway. Could you expand a little bit more on your question?
yeah. My point is, in an event where our projects require that we integrate some third part libraries, yeah, on our part it would be difficult because those are things that require money to buy and all those. Like there's an issue of licensing that is involved.
What component, what library requires licensing?
The JS moment, it's a third library that just makes
third-party library, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, then
So,
I mean, I don't know what JS Moment does, right? And the thing is, you're falling into the same trap as I think Mwewa's team, right? You're getting ahead of yourselves. And this is a
no, that was that.
Yes, you are. This is a problem. How do you know you're going to use JS Moment when you haven't even gathered the requirements?
Because
Well,
I've been checking.
Okay. So
I've always been on.
So the thing about the library, right? If you see, if I'm developing a piece of software, I can only know what sort of library I'm going to use once I collect the specification of the software I'm building. How do you know what exactly it is you're going to be building? I mentioned that those bullet points are provided to the description of the different project topics that I plotted to the group. Those are just pointers to give you an idea of what you're going to be developing. It turns out that as part of what we are doing, what we are learning, is you are going to have to go through a thorough process of collecting requirements, refining them, trying to figure out exactly what the stakeholders want that application to do, the features it's supposed to exhibit. You don't know. Which stakeholder do you speak to?
I did not, but what?
Yeah, but you're making the assumption that, and it's fine, but you're making the assumption that you know what the piece of software is going to do.
No. Get this from me, sir. What I did was I've always been on the other spectrum of our project, so I was just trying to check what would be required in that program. Now I came to the realization that if we are just to use the normal way of presenting a calendar or something, it will require that if that piece of software was used by another individual, let's say in the US, which has a different time zone, then there'll be complications. Hence, the JS moment comes in just to facilitate that. So now, in order for us to integrate that JS moment,
if you're working on a project that has to do with events, I might have hinted at the fact that you're going to have to interact with the Google Calendar API or something. Did I do that? No, yes? Are you working on a project that's going to involve you interacting with the Google Calendar API? If that's the case, if you're going to be interacting with the Google Calendar API, you leave it up to the individual because you're going to be putting information from a pre-existing calendar, right? So you leave it up to the individual who has created that calendar where you're putting information from to specify the time zone. If you're unable to do that, if you don't want to use Google Calendar, then you're going to have to find another way of solving that problem other than lifting something that requires you to pay money for you to acquire rights to that piece of software. You're going to have to find an open source alternative. Here's an example for you. Do you know that UNZA has two parallel learning management systems in place? There's Moodle and then there's Astria. Have you heard of Astria?
No, not at all.
Has anybody, those of you listening, is there anyone who has heard of Astria? You're 15 characters. Nobody wants to talk to me.
just heard of it in the
Okay.
past 3 days when
Oh, yes, perfect. That's one of,
e-learning
yeah,
issues.
that's one of the reasons why I asked, because I expect you to have heard about it, because it happens to be something that the School of Humanities is talking about a lot, because they plan to use Astria rather than Moodle, right? Astria is not available for free. It is not open source. What that means is UNZA pays licensing fees to the individuals behind Astria. They pay money. But if you're an institution that is unable to pay money to use Astria, what you do is you find an alternative. That alternative could take the form of Moodle, Sakai, right? There are a ton of them. So what I'm trying to say is, if it turns out that the so-called, and this is for you, Clement, if it turns out that your so-called JS moment requires that you pay money, and obviously you don't have the money to do that, and I don't think that I'll tolerate any project that incorporates some tool that requires you to pay money, then what you do is you find an open source alternative. And I gave you pointers on where you can find these open source alternative tools. GitHub, right? If you're going to use Moodle, if you're going to use Java, then I told you there are plenty of Maven repositories that you can look out for out there. Right? JS Moment sounds like one of those JavaScript libraries. From the looks of things, I don't know. JS, I'm just assuming it's a JavaScript library. If that's the case, then you just find an alternative. It's as easy as searching for alternative to JS Moment. It's not that hard, in my opinion, anyway. Does that help answer your question, Clement? So,
Sure thing, sir. Sure.
Look for a library that is going to be freely available and open source. Why do you want it open source? Because it turns out that you might find yourselves wanting to make modifications to the library. And if the thing is closed off, you won't be able to make modifications now, will you? No, you won't, right? But I'll reiterate the point I raised before we took a tangent and started talking about JS Moment and GitHub. Don't get too far ahead of yourselves. We are going through a process of, I don't know how many times we're going to talk about this, but what we are doing in this course is we are going through a process of studying how to build software. And we're going to do this piece by piece, right? Come on. Okay. Oh, wow. So we're going to do this piece by piece. What we did in lecture series number 1 is nothing more than an overview of what we're going to be doing. Unfortunately, because of the transition to this really weird mode of teaching and learning, we will not immediately go through requirements analysis, but rather we'll jump ahead and look at project management so that you can already start planning your respective projects. And I'll talk a bit more about what we're going to do in project management just now. But after project management, we'll study how to collect requirements. We'll go through requirements analysis, right? So we'll look at various techniques that we use to collect requirements. What do we do? And once we discuss this, the expectation is that the various individuals undertaking all those different projects that you selected will be able to figure out which techniques to use for them to be able to gather a comprehensive set of requirements. We will also learn how to prepare the formal document, which I introduced in lecture series number 2, the so-called requirement specification document, right? Because when you're collecting the documents, those are more or less informal, right? You're collecting them from potential stakeholders, so potential end users or your customers of the software project, right? Usually, the form that they'll present these requirements to you is informal, right? Oh, I want this login button to change color and whatnot when I click on it, or whatever, something weird, right? You need to translate that into something more formal. Ultimately, the output is going to be a requirement specification document. And then we'll move on and study how to go through software design. How do we design software? What sort of different artifacts do we come up with, right? And this ties on to a question that Lewis asked. Do we have to prepare these artifacts? And I CC'd everybody else in class, and not just Lewis's group, because I thought the other people would benefit. Again, the Lewis group was getting ahead, too far ahead of themselves. The assignment doesn't require you to prepare any design artifacts. Why? Because we haven't gone through a process of developing a design artifact, right? Do you know how to come up with a conceptual design? No. Architectural design? No, you don't, right? You know, all these things are going to fall into place eventually. And then after the design, I mean, we're not really going to waste time on implementation, because the assumption we're making is that you went through this process with Hiela in 2010, because fundamental implementation mostly involves programming. Perhaps we'll just gloss over, introduce you to certain things that might be of use, like when it comes to interface design, for instance, you do not have to use those JH option pens that Hiela introduced you to. Why? There are tools, software tools that you can use to easily come up with a user interface, drag and drop. Do you understand what I mean? And then we'll move on to testing. We'll study how we go about testing. What sort of test documents do we have to prepare, right? Unit tests, acceptance tests, integration tests. How do we do all those things, right? This is what we are doing in this course. So, again, I don't know if I've gone way off the tangent here, but I was responding to Clement's question. You are wasting your time if you are thinking about implementation specific details of the project. Why? Because you have no clue what sort of features this piece of software is supposed to exhibit. You have no clue because you have not undertaken a comprehensive requirements analysis process, right? Requirements elicitation, yeah? Does that make sense? I don't know if I'm talking to myself again, at least I know my microphone.
Yes, it is. It is.
Yes, sir, it's making sense.
Okay.
It's making sense very much. We are benefiting.
Right, okay.
I told you, Hawkins, you've heard him, right?
Right. So are there any other questions besides what Clement asked? Any takers, questions? I don't know if Jackson's team is here. They had asked a question to do with, I thought that was really funny, right? And so when Mr. Nkata asked that question, right, I went to their Slack channel because I've been behind here. And I noticed that they actually had a very superficial discussion about this. Notice that Jackson had actually hinted to the rest of the group that actually what Lighton was referring to when he said process, software process activities in the assignment, right, it's there. What he was hinting at is the software process, the activities associated with this SDL SEEP cycle, right, software development life cycle, and not specifics of what libraries are you going to use, right? What software stack are you going to use? No, that has nothing to do with the software process activities, right? It has nothing to do with that. But I thought it was interesting that this group had actually, and I want to open the assignment for the benefit of those that might be lost. So what is this guy talking about, right? This is there, right? The title of the assignment, assignment 7, identify group project process activity tasks, yeah? Specific tasks, just brainstorm and think about them. You know why we are doing this? We are doing this to help you understand what you're doing. You have to start talking about these different things you're going to have to undertake now rather than later, right? Which is why I said in the meeting minutes, here, last bullet here, the details of what you discuss must be included in the meeting notes. And you notice that the specification of the meeting notes just says maybe half a page of a document or 1 page, right? So that's a hint for you. A hint that whatever you're going to include as part of your minutes is just going to be a summary of what you'd have discussed as a group. A summary of the different tasks that you're going to perform or undertake, right? Associated with those core process activities, requirements engineering, design, implementation, testing. It's not that hard. You're overthinking this whole thing. And again, you're falling into the trap that the average, I guess a beginner normally falls into, right? Trying to get too far ahead of yourself. And I know why. You think that the most exciting thing about what you're doing is the implementation, and which is true, by the way. The coding part is the most exciting part. But if you want to understand how to develop software, you need to understand the end-to-end process. And in fact, if you want to pass the exam, you want to understand the end-to-end process. Am I making sense? if I were you, I would refrain from going into the gory details of more detailed implementation specific tasks. Sure, I mean, you can already start reading up on different APIs that you're going to potentially use as a group. Maybe if you've decided to say, because there are certain things that are already intuitive, like we know that the average project that you're going to be working on is going to be database driven. So you can already start reading up on databases if you don't want to wait for 3010, right? Because you know that whether you like it or not, you're going to have to integrate some sort of backend to your application. Okay, I guess I went on a rant there. Are there any other questions, clarifications? If some of my responses were not very clear, especially I never got a response from Jackson's team. I see Wes is there. I can't see Mwewa here. So, Wes is gone. So I don't know if those people, Wes is there actually. I don't know if this helps answer your question, Wes. I see you're the only person. Yeah, you don't have to type, you can just ask Wes. Wes, you can go ahead and ask your question, unmute and ask your question if you have a question. And this is not just Wes, whoever has a question, okay, just feel free to unmute and then ask your question and then mute your microphone and then Light will respond. Yep.
Okay, so what you've said so far is making sense.
Okay.
And yes, and I just have a question to say, does this mean that we are still on the research phase, like just researching, trying to know better, like the things that we're going to work with?
Okay, so where's this question is, does it mean you're still at the research phase? No, I don't know what you mean by research here, but okay, we are still at I guess we're still at the introductory phase. I don't know what you mean by research here, but because it turns out that you'll be researching over and over again, right? What do you mean by research, Wes? Do you want to expand on that question?
Okay, like you said, you talked about we shouldn't be more excited about the implementation part. We have to first know the things that we're going to work with, like the requirements that we are supposed to have. So what I mean is, does it mean that we still have to research on the requirements, or I don't know. I just don't know how to put it. Hello?
Right, I kind of get, I guess I have an idea of where you're going with this here. There's nothing like researching the requirements. You see what happens when you're collecting requirements, right? And this applies to everybody here. Collecting requirements means a couple of things here. What we're simulating, by the way, is fundamentally there's like two different types of applications, right? There's what they call bespoke applications or software, bespoke software or custom software. I don't know if you've heard of that phrase. You want to look it up. So bespoke means somebody already has an idea of what they want. It's custom software. A generic piece of software would be like something like Facebook, where someone was dreaming in their dorm and they thought it was a good idea, and then in the process it turned out to be a really good idea, right? Yeah. So what we're looking at is bespoke software, right? Although in all these different instances you actually collect requirements. So if we're looking at bespoke software or custom software, what that means is at some stage what you need to do is you need to identify the stakeholders, potential users, and your customers or clients of that piece of software that you're going to be building. The reason you want to identify them is at some stage you're going to have to approach them to start interrogating them to find out exactly what it is they want. Do you understand? Right? So
yes.
There's nothing like researching. You actually go out there and you do, and what it turns out that what you do are the things that were introduced to you in 2034, right? And I guess for some of you in these other courses that you've done, right? So you probably go out there and maybe you interview people, you have focus group discussions with people, right? You approach very important people like technical individuals, like technically inclined individuals, like people in the IT department, to find out what sort of infrastructure they have, right? Because if you remember our discussion of what goes into the design, for instance, of this piece of software, we said it's things like the platform. You remember that? Platform, requirements document. Where do you think you're going to find out details to do with the platform? Think. You're going to have to go to the people that are going to use that software and find out to them. Hello, tell us what sort of operating system have you adopted as a company? Yeah. So to answer your question, there's nothing like doing research. Don't do any research. Once we are done with project management, which is the lecture series we begin next, and please remind me if I forget here, there are a couple of things I want to talk about here. There's a bit of uncertainty associated with this teaching and learning, apparently our union and non-payment and whatnot, and disadvantaged students not having access to whatever. It's a mess, right? So, but the next lecture series, which is why I've been delaying in updating or uploading the slides here, because there's something political going on behind the scenes here. But the next batch of screencasts and notes that are going to be uploaded are going to be centered around project management. And then after project management, it's going to be requirements analysis, where we will introduce or revise those different techniques. How do you design a survey so that you effectively collect the information that you need from potential users, right? A survey, like a questionnaire, for instance. Are you going to have to design a paper-based questionnaire, or is it going to be an online questionnaire, for instance, like what Lighton used for that Google Forms, right? Are you going to have to interview people? If you're going to interview people, what sort of specific questions are you going to ask them? So that you collect a comprehensive set of requirements, or just comprehensive, but a correct set of requirements. So there's nothing like doing research here. We'll go through, once we are done going through the requirements, once we are done going through requirements analysis, then the next batch of assignments is going to be centered around you designing these different data collection, I guess, techniques, right? Or artifacts, whatever you want to call them. So if you decide to say you're going to use questionnaires or you're going to conduct interviews, you are going, as a group, you're going to work through an assignment where you develop this interview guide. You design it to develop it in such a way that you're able to elicit the information that you need. Do you understand what I'm saying here? If it's going to be a focus group discussion, you identify key people that you're going to talk to. Especially for those of you that are working on tools that are supposed to be used by lecturers, for instance, it makes sense that you hold a focus group discussion where you have Lighton there, Piela, and a few other individuals that have taught you, right? All in one room, and then you start interrogating them. But we'll discuss all those different things, right? Yeah? And then more importantly, we'll go through a thorough process of coming up with this requirement specification document. It turns out that it has to be prepared in a certain way, right? There's a standard that you follow. You just don't put together things, right? There's a standard that you follow. Am I making sense here? And does that answer your question, Wes?
Yes, yeah, it's making sense, and I think my question has been answered.
Okay. Are there any other questions? Feel free to ask. Unmute your microphone and then ask away if you have questions. I was expecting a lot of questions tied to the assignment, seeing as the deadline is tomorrow, but it appears I think most of our concerns were clarified. But no more questions? Going once, going twice?
I just have something in short.
Yeah, sure, go ahead.
Yeah, I wanted to find out concerning the status reports, you know, as in what really is to be written there? What really do we have to show? I'm a bit puzzled on that.
Puzzled on what report?
Because the status report, the one where you need to show your status and everything.
You know what? Well, thanks. You know, I thought people had already figured out what the status report is all about. if you look at the status report, right, it has certain funny components that you probably understand a lot more when we go through project management. There's a section where we get to discuss people management and is it team organization or something. It turns out that for a software project, right, you typically have predefined roles. So you have a project manager, right, a designated project manager. This is a role that I said maybe you should rotate amongst you guys or something. So the purpose of that status report is for you to just indicate in your group of 4 or 5 people, what did Kalima do? What did you do? Right? What did now I don't know who else is part of your group here, but for all of those 5 people in your group, right? You tell us, you indicate what they did, right? What did Alice do, right, in that particular week? If she didn't do anything, I mean, you just tell us she didn't do anything, right? You see, for most of these things, and I know it sounds like, well, that's stupid. I know like a 5-year-old, I guess, brother or something can do this. We know, but the whole point of doing this is, and you might not appreciate what we're doing now, and perhaps not even at the end of the course, but maybe when you're doing your capstone project, maybe when you start working out there, you remember these interactions. I'm trying to get you into the habit of committing all this into memory. It should become muscle memory. So every week you prepare a status report so that when you start doing the more complex things, you know exactly what you need to do. So what goes into the status report, maybe let me just open it up to just give you an example, because I clearly, it's like, maybe it's not making sense, I guess, I don't know. I'm just going to open up this template, right? So just give you an example. Wow. So let's say this is I guess Katiwa's team, right? You tell us a summary of what you did in that week. What were you doing in that week? Well, maybe if it was Clement's team, were you looking at JS events or whatever the hell you call it, right? Were you looking at that particular library? If you were, how much progress did you make, right? So you could just, as a key task, you could just say, reading up on JS events library. Progress, you tell us, is this 80% done or something? And then you tell us also the status of that thing. If you notice, the status has a drop down, right? Is this complete or, oh my God. Can you still hear me? Am I making sense? Or am I just waffling about here?
Yeah, you're making sense.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
So this is an example, right? You say, what task did you do? Oh, we were, if it was Hawkins' team, we were researching, because he had asked in the last interaction, oh, can we have a session on MySQL? And I said yes, in due course, right? So researching on MySQL in this week, right? For certain tasks, maybe you might not finish them in that particular week, right? So you just say, as a key task, researching MySQL, progress made. This is weird. The validation is supposed to have oh, there we go. So you could just say complete or on track or something. Then you just say maybe this is 50% done or something. You understand? In that particular week, maybe you just did 10% of researching MySQL, 11%, right? Yeah?
Yeah.
You understand? It's a list of these small little tasks that you are doing as a team. If you were looking at,
I thought
you could say investigating process activities. Yeah? I expect to see this.
I thought it had some sort of logic that we need to follow, right?
No, not really. Not really. For now, maybe it will make a lot more sense, actually. I don't know what's happening here. But it will make a lot more sense once we are done with project management. This will come up as well. Because once we do project management, we'll look at the whole, what we tend to do in so far as risk is concerned, risk identification, mitigation, risk management, all those different things, yeah? Yes?
Yeah.
Right, so for the role, I had predefined roles for now because I'm expecting that maybe it's up to you. You could decide to say maybe Kativa is going to be your project manager for the entire duration of this course, or maybe you're going to rotate this role or something. Maybe for the analysis phase, it's going to be Kativa. The development phase is going to be a different project manager. And then all these different roles are going to be, for now, it's just team members, but eventually you have maybe developer, or something. You understand what I mean? And then for hours, you just indicate how much effort was put into this particular week. And don't lie, right? You just say, maybe we dedicated the entire week, it was just 5 hours allocated. Katia only worked 1 hour or something, maybe because there's no power where he is. I don't know where you are, right? You understand what I mean? Yeah?
Yeah, I'm getting it now.
For now, though, you notice that the marks once, and again, this ties on to, there was a question from one of you, I guess it was an IAWA team who were trying to find out to say, can you please, we don't know how you graded the first batch of assignments, so we don't know how to go about doing this. And I said, just follow the instructions. I don't know who that is, because I want to mute your microphone. But for these particular status reports, you lose marks only when you don't do things like uploading file. If you upload files with some funny name, you're definitely going to lose marks, right? If you don't have files uploaded into your the Google shared drive, you're going to lose marks, right? Because that's all part of the assignment, right? And I'm just going to randomly look at this, right? Analysis and meeting analysis, and I don't know who this is. Oh, meeting. Oh, wow, I don't know. I guess it's analysis. I don't know if it's analysis or project, whatever this is. Probably a bad example here. I don't know what you've been. Oh, was that project management, Katia, right? So if you look at this, if we notice to say we look at your, and oh my God, I just randomly went into project team 10. I didn't know that it was Katia, and I'm responding to Katia's comment, right? This is wrong. You're losing marks here, right? You were told. It's not just PDF. There must be a Google Docs document, right? Why are you only uploading this? This is wrong. And where are the other documents here? Or maybe this was the first one. I guess you haven't yet uploaded the second one. What the assignment says, Katia, right? Simple thing. This shared Google Drive must always have the version of, maybe I should go back to the assignment. It must always have Google Docs version. You remember that? Can someone respond? Do you remember that, us mentioning that? You want me to go to the meeting minutes to showcase what I mean? Create a Google Docs file, right? And then they should also, you upload the PDF document to Moodle, but that shared drive should always, yeah, well, I mean, you're not following the instructions, right? And this is the thing here, and this is why I kept on mentioning, and I'm sorry, I think we're wasting time here, we're going around in circles here, but I told you, I said, if you have 5 of you, what are the odds that all 5 of you are doing the wrong thing? To me, it's either maybe just 1 or 2 people are waking, right? Or maybe you're all waking, but maybe there's just 1 or 2 people that are pushing for things to be done, and then everybody just goes with the flow to say, I think we're doing the right thing. You must debate. You must argue, right? You must discuss, which is why I said brainstorm, right? And if you reach an impasse, Harrison asked me how to pick up his microphone. If you get to an impasse, right, where you can't agree on what to do, you ask a question to Lighton, like the others have been doing. You send out an email and ask for clarification. Are there any other questions?
Okay.
Read and understand the question. Make sure you're doing the right thing. And because all of this is important, file conventions are going to be followed down to the dot. If you name your file like some other characters did, where you are naming, I thought that was really silly. I can understand if it's a first year student doing that, right? But I thought it was very disappointing that there were characters that were doing this, right? If you look at, and I'm sorry, I'm going to have to showcase this to some of you people here. Why would you? the thing tells you to name it explicit. Why would you name your file project 14 database location? Why are you doing that, right? How hard is it for you to follow a very simple set of instructions? This is the name you should use. Okay, are there any other questions you have, guys? I understand that, and I see Wes's other team member is here, which is Mwewa. Hopefully Wes will be able to share some of the things we discussed. Are there any other questions? Before I quickly run you through what we're going to be doing next. Questions going once, going twice? No more questions? Hello? Okay.
I have a question.
Oh, yes.
I'm sorry, I came a bit late.
Yes, we noticed.
Yeah. My question is, did you or have we already discussed assignment 7 and the requirements?
Yes, we have.
Oh.
Maybe if you want to just quickly summarize what your main concern was, and I know maybe Wes might have picked up a thing or two about some of the things that were raised by your group, I guess. But do you want to?
I would appreciate it.
Yeah. Well, go ahead. Ask. What's your concern?
Well, it was on the wording, specifically when you said the software processes, and
actually the wording was went through this. The wording was not software processes. The wording was software process activities, which is why in my response email I actually directed you to the specific part of the lecture slides where software process activities are. Not reading, sorry. Where software process activities are discussed. There we go. The title says process activities. So it's just a conversation around, and you know what these software process activities are. If you don't, please go to slide number, oh, there we go. Go to slide number 71, start from there, and then just go through all these different process activities. Requirement elicitation, and the idea is for you to, like I said again, we're repeating this, and I guess in the guys that were here earlier probably bored. So this guy is just repeating himself and just modifying words, right? We say all you do is you just brainstorm or discuss how all these different activities relate to your project. So when you're discussing design, for instance, what sort of design artifacts do you think you'll be able to come up with as a group? The idea is just to get you started so that once we get to the stage where we're discussing requirements analysis, you already have a firm understanding of what you're doing. That's all. And what you're including in the status, in the meeting notes, is just a summary of what you discussed. It's a summary because we mentioned that those minutes are supposed to be half a page, or at the most, if it's overkill, just a full page. But don't stress too much about it. Turns out that the marking is not really going to be, there's no one true answer about what you discussed as a team insofar as process activities are concerned. As long as you discussed it and you discussed the correct things, which are software process activities, right? Then that's fine. Requirement engineering, design, implementation, testing, and all the different sub-tasks that are associated with those process activities. That's all. Don't go into the gory details of, oh, how are we supposed to develop the architectural design? We haven't looked at system design yet, so don't do that. I hope that helps answer your question.
yes, thank you.
Okay. Any other questions?
I have a question, sir.
Yes, please go ahead.
Sir, I have a question concerning what I just saw. I see my group.
What did you see? I hope I didn't have things that people are not supposed to see. You might have grades or confidential emails here, right?
No,
okay.
no, sir.
Yeah.
I'm seeing my name. I'm seeing my name in red, including my my group members.
Where?
Are we still on the? Are we still on the offense? Yes, the same one. Are we still on the offense of not?
No. This was version number 2, and I think this was fixed somehow. So I need to update this document here. I will update it. No, you're not. There's no offense here. Edith reached out and Clement as well reached out to us, so that's fine. And I think we're ready. So sorry, this, forget about the red. This is an old document, it's an old version of the document.
All right. Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir. Any other questions before maybe we weren't supposed to spend an hour on this, guys? No more questions? All right. So guys, if you have questions towards the end, just a quick rundown of what we're going to be doing next, right? And I'm still sharing my screen here. So the next step, and I mentioned to you guys that we were going to jumble things around. In an ideal case, we're supposed to go through requirements, elicitation, and specification, but lo and behold, we've decided to jump ahead and introduce project management of fundamentals of project management. So this is what we're starting with in lecture series. This is what we're going to tag as lecture series number 3. And essentially what we want to do is just gain a firm sense of some of the key things we're going to be doing as we are managing this software development project we're working towards in our respective groups. Specifically, we're going to look at key things associated with project planning. So how you plan for a project. Of course, we're going to initially introduce this whole notion of project management, what is a project and all those boring things. I don't know if they've been introduced to you in these other courses. Hopefully you're introduced to project management in 3034. If you were, then maybe we are going to quickly go through this. Question, did you look at project management in 2034? Hello? Did you look at project?
No.
Oh, we didn't. We didn't.
I will ask Dr. Gakandelwa, and it won't be nice if it would turn out that you did. Okay, so if you want, then we'll go into, that was a joke, but a serious joke anyway. But so if you didn't, we'll introduce what a project is, and then we'll go through project planning. How do we plan for a project? Project scheduling. That's when we start looking at coming up with schedules, right? Timelines, Gantt charts. For planning, we'll look at how to develop these work breakdown structures. I guess for scheduling as well, we'll look at activity networks, right? How we identify critical paths in our project, right? And then more importantly, we will go through risk management. There are just a few tools that are introduced here. These are easy to use tools. So things like, this is where we get to look at, I really love Project Libre. I really love this tool. So I'll introduce you to a tool that I like myself. It's a project management tool. Very easy to use tool, so you can use it to create a work breakdown structure if you want to create a Gantt chart, an activity network, all those different things. We'll look at all those different things. And then if you want, though, as a group, you can play around with Microsoft Project if you want to, which is quite nice, I'm told, as well. It's tied to Microsoft Office if you want to use that. Yeah, and then that's it, and then we'll jump to requirements analysis. The reason we are doing this, by the way, is because it turns out that for you to be able to develop that project proposal, there are certain artifacts you're going to have to integrate into your project proposal. For instance, project proposal is supposed to have team organization. It's supposed to have details of potential risks that you've identified and how you're going to mitigate those risks, right? How you're going to manage those risks. So how are you going to plan for this project, right? What sort of milestones and deliverables are you going to work towards? And then we're obviously going to sneak in things like boring things for people doing English, I guess, or languages. Boring things like how do you effectively communicate, right? How do you properly write documents? How do you come up with things like presentations when you're wanting to convey a certain message to your key stakeholders, project owners, right? Because it turns out at some stage you're going to have to do a project proposal presentation, right? So all these things, right? We're going to introduce in project management. It shouldn't take us no more than, I guess, maybe 2 interactions like this, 2 interactions similar to lecture series number 2, and then we are done with this. Is that fine? So this is what we're going to do in lecture series number 3. And so again, I know that there are some of you that are probably, you're probably related to members of staff. Maybe you have your parents that are members of staff. So you know that, and I'm recording this session, but there's nothing, I guess there's nothing secretive about this, but there's usually all these politics behind, unions, saying, teaching, even if it's e-learning because of non-payment of salaries, yada, 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 then, so I apologize that I haven't shared the slides yet, even though technically speaking, almost towards the end of the week, but they will be shared as soon as we are sure that we are not doing anything that is untoward. I don't know if I'm making sense here. I'm trying to be diplomatic, but we are old enough here. We understand what's going on here, right? Do you understand what I mean? Lecture series, lecture notes, lecture series number 3 notes, and screencasts will be shared very, very soon. As soon as Lighton is certain that it is okay to share them. Okay? Hello?
Yes, that's fine.
Yes.
Yeah,
I know everybody who is related to a member of staff in here, so I know you know what's going on. You don't have to beat about the bush. If you know of colleagues that don't know, you can always tell them what is going, or some of the confusion and the politics that goes on. It's always nice to share with your colleagues offline, these WhatsApp groups, right? Tell them, say, this is what's happening. I guess it also explains why maybe in some of the courses, I'm guessing there's some courses that you haven't even started yet, right?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Yes, like geography.
Oh, okay. All right. So, guys, I don't know if there are any questions, but I would like for us to continue this conversation. Please, if your group wants to even schedule a 5-minute to 10-minute interaction like this one, let me know, and then we can schedule a meeting where we can have like this video conferencing call or something with your respective groups. I don't mind. You don't have to wait until Lighton schedules an interaction like this one, right? We want to make sure that we learn this end-to-end process. And again, if I were you, do not obsess a lot about implementation. Implementation is just a tiny little bit of what you are supposed to be doing. Again, in closing, I'm going to go to this breakdown of Marx to remind you that this thing that we're working towards, it's part of a bigger picture, right? The implementation only accounts for a small little, let's look at grading, this is evolving. Look at implementation. Yeah? Can you see implementation, system development and implementation? How many marks? People don't know how to count, right? 4 plus 1 plus 1 plus 1. 7 marks, actually. It's supposed to be 8 somehow, I think. It's about 8 marks, right? So which is
6.
So which is why, I mean, but of course, don't say, oh, so we can relax. It turns out that there are certain stages or phases that are dependent on implementation. Like for instance, you can only perform you can only come up with an effective test plan or test strategy once you implement. You can't evaluate if you haven't implemented anything, right? So let's remember this, right? Is that fine? Oh, great.
Yes, sir.
So I'll invite you to maybe in closing, if there are any other, the next thing on our agenda was AOB, which is any other business. If you have any other pressing concerns, things that you want Lighton to clarify, things that you're uncomfortable about, Lighton won't penalize you by being open, and you should be free to speak your mind out if you want to. Now is the time. If not, you can always write to me offline. And if you don't want me to CC other people, you can always specify to say, please do not, when responding, do not copy the others, because I copy people, I copy the rest of the class when I feel like my response is going to benefit others. Do you understand? But if it's something that's private, and I think I've interacted with some of you in private, I will not copy the others. If you want to explicitly state that you don't want Lighton to CC the others, let Lighton know, right? So if there are no questions, I'll invite maybe people to ask questions if there are any questions, any other business, concerns, comments, complaints, jokes, nothing.
Yeah, it's can I just say something before we go? Yeah, concerning the upload of Google documents.
Yes. Yes, well,
It's not only my group, actually. We are challenges editing those documents. Yes.
yeah, this is it. This is it. This is the problem you have here. This is EDU 1020 fundamentals of these are basic stuff, right? I saw this. Your challenges. This is weird here. Can you see my screen? I had challenges. We had challenges.
Yes.
It's a joke. So I saw what you were trying to do. What you do is what Lighton is going to do now is Lighton is going to. What you must do is, instead of requesting edit, you should make a copy of the document. And I think there are some of you that have done that. Yes? Let me show you something. And for me to show you what I mean here is what Lighton is going to do right now is he's going to modify the permissions so that it's oh my goodness. So I shared this with specific people here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to say, and I'll need to change this afterwards. Kalima, could you confirm? You can view the document, all right?
Yes,
yes.
you can.
So if you can view the document, look at this. I'm going to change for now, I'm going to change so that everybody can view this document. And then what I will do is I'll copy this document, you see that? And then I will open an incognito window so that I won't be logged on. You notice that Lighton is not logged on right now, but Lighton has access to this document. If you have access to the document and you log in, what you can do is you can copy this document by adding it to your drive, but you need to log in. Okay, I'm going to log in using my personal account because you need to log in. So Lighton is logged on using his personal account here. I don't know if you can see that. I'm not logging on using my own account, which is the one I used to create this document. But because I've changed the permission now so that anybody on the web has access to this document, look at this. If I open that document, excuse me, what you should do is you can either download the document, you see this, you download it, and then you edit it. You edit it so that you give it an appropriate name. And I think you've done this already. So I don't know what challenges you have. I don't know if I'm answering your question. If I'm not, interrupt me and comment here. Hello?
We are listening.
Okay, so what you want to do is you want to maybe sign in and then download the document, or just once you're logged on, like Lighton here. You see Lighton is logged on here. This is Lighton Gmail account, yeah? So what I can do here is I can say, I want to, you see this icon here, this drive icon with a plus sign. You can just either add this to whatever drive, whatever, I guess, Google Shared Drive you're working with. So you add it there, right? Or better yet, you can just say, open this with Sheets, Google Sheets, like I have done. Once you do that, then you see here it says it's in view only mode, right? Because you can't edit this. Then you say file, right? And then you can say make a copy. Once you say make a copy, you navigate to the drive location where you want to save this copy. And when you make this copy, right? If I say make a copy, you notice that it has a provision for me to change the name, yeah? Hello? You can change it.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, so I'll just change this to Katio or something. Your example, right? And then you say, okay, then that's it. So once you make a copy, when you make a copy of that document, you'll be working with a version that only you and your team members will have access to. There's a reason why the template, most of you were asking for edit access, and I was responding to some of you early on to say, you don't need edit access to this. You can just make a copy. When you make a copy, then you can edit this, yeah? Does that help?
Yeah, I'm getting it.
And then from here, actually, within Drive, by the way, you can actually convert your document to PDF and whatnot, and all those funny things. Anyway, any other questions before Lighton goes? Oh, it's late. No questions? All right, so guys, I'm going to leave you. Please stay safe, right? It doesn't yet become serious in Zambia, but stay safe, put on a mask or whatever. Stay indoors if you can. If you're in Kafue, hold on, hang on in there. I'm sure things will be fine. Thanks, and see you soon. Send emails if you have questions. Bye.